Elaine, it's just such a pleasure reconnecting with you live today, and look forward to hearing about what you're doing with TOFU and then where AI fits in with go-to-market, which I know is a very hot topic here, and I think something that probably probably all of us are grappling with in some way. So let me just have you introduce yourself, and then yeah, you can share a few things, and as you know, and I mean, most people here have been to at least one of these before, but this winds up being a pretty conversational, participatory group. So for folks who haven't been to one, feel free to chime in the chat if you have like something burning you want to get on Zoom and ask. Sometimes the hand raise feature winds up helping prioritize things. But Elaine, meanwhile, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks, David. And great to meet you all. So quick background on me. I'm the co-founder and CRO of a company called TOFU. We're a generative AI platform to help put top of funnel go-to-market on autopilot for B2B marketing teams. I'll show you what that means in a little bit, but how I got here. So I started my life and career as a biomechanical engineer of all things, so very related to marketing. And really quickly after college, realized how slow everything in the hardware world is. So did a pretty quick pivot into software, joined a startup as employee number 2, spent 5 years there, got to help them raise about $75 million. I started on the product side, but no one was doing go-to-market. So I just started doing it and I really loved it. I really loved being that connective tissue between the customers and the market, and then the product and engineering teams, which I could speak their language. And after 5 years there, I started doing some consulting on the side, just as a little side hustle because people kept sending companies my way. And then I left and went to Slack when they were launching their enterprise product to lead enterprise go-to-market. Those consulting clients turned into relationships with VCs, which somehow led me down the path of VC. So after Slack, I joined a venture capital firm called Signal Fire for 5 years, where I was a partner investing at the intersection of AI and software. I looked at a ton of MarTech, sales tech companies. I looked at a ton of other vertical SaaS and things like that. And I had been following Gen AI since 2018. I actually built my very first product then called SoundSpot that could turn any corporate blog into a podcast. So think like literally your company's blog, you pick your voice, we crawl your feed every day to see if there are new posts, and then we automatically syndicate that as part of your RSS feed. And this was using, if you can believe this, GPT-1. So it was literally like the very first thing that OpenAI had launched. And then Google's very first transformer for speech called Tacotron. Funny name, but that's
I mean, it's just wild too, because have you actually seen companies that are doing that now? Like just building that, and like I've gotten pitches like that, and see,
totally.
it's just so funny to see what you were building with seems like DOS level technology.
Oh, totally. And I mean, this was 6 years ago, but it's funny too, because it still exists in the wild. And if you go back and listen to some of the outputs, you'd laugh, but at the time it felt like magic, like true magic. And now you look at 11 Labs and you could clone your voice in the span of an hour. It's incredible. So on the investing side, it was a pretty awesome opportunity to have that 10,000 foot view and really get to see everyone building in the space. And I looked at a ton of companies that were very thin wrappers around OpenAI building for marketing use cases. And I made zero investments in the space, but it was one of those things where I started thinking about what would be the big swing in the MarTech space with Gen AI. What would the next Salesforce look like? And one of the reasons I've always admired Salesforce is they've done a phenomenal job of rebundling kind of mid and bottom funnel. So if you are sales or CS, they really own that whole kind of stack of, we have an opportunity all the way through procurement, legal, everything post. Nobody has done the same thing for top of funnel and mid funnel. So the idea was, could you build the Salesforce of that and can you use Gen AI to do it? And so that's kind of how TOFU was born. I decided to leave a very, cushy VC job and go back to the startup world, but I'm having such an awesome time. I would love, questions are great. I have some slides, but it's very much interactive demos. So I just want to show you a bunch of really cool stuff in case you haven't seen it, and talk a little bit about where we're seeing real adoption and things that are working in marketing workflows with Gen AI and where we're not. Let me pull up my screen now. And David, if you see people that have questions that I missed, just jump in.
All right, will do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to skim through a lot of this because I know you guys are all marketers that are deep in AI. But at a high level, it's super early, but it is insane how fast it's moving. text today is pretty much ready for prime time. There are a ton of tools out there that will help you do really cool things with text. Like if that is what your goal is, like it's working. Audio is also working. This is pretty cool. Like you guys have probably seen this, but actually, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me. Let me take my AirPods off. One moment. I'm going to play this really quickly because I think this is pretty cool. Oh, hold on. Okay.
This is my voice. I'm a human. This is not my voice. You might find this hard to believe, but the voice you're hearing right now isn't mine. Seriously, this voice is being generated by artificial intelligence. Let me explain. I recorded a 3-minute voice sample of myself reading miscellaneous stuff, fairy tales, a recent blog post, etc. Then I fed that sample into a voice synthesis platform, which used it as a model and built a clone of my voice. Practically speaking, I can type whatever I want into a text box, and AI will generate speech that sounds eerily indistinguishable from my own voice. It's a crazy technology, but also a bit frightening. Think about it. Someone else could just grab samples of my voice from social media, upload it as a training model, and voila. Now you've got me saying things I've never actually said. I'm not sure I'm ready for that world. It's pretty wild. I don't know what to think of it.
So
this is my voice.
That brings up a lot of things around both the power of it, but also what could go wrong with it. But audio, it's crazy, very cool. If I was going to rebuild SoundSpot today, it would obviously look very different. Image is there, but not for B2B. I have tested every every image model and tried my best to not get it to do text. And for the life of me, I cannot get it to not do text. I've tried every positive prompt, negative prompt, every model. This is one of my favorite ones. If you look at the bottom, it says optimated head ass. I don't think that is something that I would actually want to publish. Here are some of my favorite image fails of trying to get a blog image. Again, using multiple models. It's just not quite there yet for B2B. What is there though on the image side is being able to use computer vision to auto tag images, identify the elements in the image, and then swap them out. So if you wanted to go and upload an image repository and say for a landing page or for a blog post or for a marketing email, automatically swap out images based off of the content, that today is working and is quite good. On the video side, I'm not going to play these, they're a little bit long, but if you have not checked out some of the new image models like Sora and even Gen 2 of Runway, the amount of progress they've made in an incredibly short time is just mind-blowing. This is, again, really far away from being really used by B2B companies, but it's getting there. On the consumer side, I think people are starting to really use it for things like ads, for things like e-commerce, that kind of stuff. It's pretty close to being there for that. So let's go into some areas that are already being affected by AI on the go-to-market side. So it's both, in my opinion, the largest opportunity for marketers' careers and also potentially the biggest threat. There are a few people that I follow on LinkedIn and other places, and this was Kieran Flanagan, the CMO, of Zapier, formerly CMO of HubSpot. He had this image that I really liked, and he was saying before AI, you had this distribution of marketers. You had at the top the people who were the original thinkers. They're coming up with really clever content pieces. They're coming up with their own types of research and their own messaging and positioning and things like that. You have the copy paste marketer who's going and kind of stealing it from things that are working from other people. And that's, okay. And then the lazy marketer that's just putting out kind of crap. It's the stuff that's spamming. It's the stuff that's just really low quality content. After AI, the amount of people who are those original thinkers are shrinking, and so many more people are becoming the copy paste because it's so much easier to do. And so where he was saying the winners are going to really fall are going to be those people who truly can stay in that original thinking bucket, but leverage AI as a force multiplier. So there's a few different areas here where we're already seeing a lot of change and a lot of ways that it's really affecting marketing. One is this concept of
the authenticity versus personalization. So if you think about it, there's somebody used this term of personalization blindness, which I really liked. If it's very easy to personalize everything, now do people become blind to it? If we're having salespeople mimicking their faces in video and it's saying, you know, hi, Elaine, I heard blah, blah, blah. Am I going to become blind if 27 people are sending me that a week? Probably. So how do you balance that authentic approach? I hosted a dinner and one of the CMOs there used this term that I loved. He said, we're trying to envelope our customers and prospects in our brand. And that means doing physical events. That means sending dimensional mail, which shocked me. That means doing a bunch of digital things that are using AI to personalize. But by doing this kind of envelope approach, we're making it both authentic, personalized, but really leveraging AI to do the pieces we think it's best at. A couple other things, this idea behind content still is king, but it's changing a lot. SEO is going to dramatically change. I think if you guys have played around in the last week with Google search, now with Gemini, the box at the top, it's insane. I stopped scrolling. I ask it a question immediately at the top, it's my answer. I don't even need to do a question. I can just type in a search to Google search bar. So I think that's going to dramatically affect how marketers think about SEO. And I don't know what that means. I don't know whether people change their content strategy, whether people are trying to game the AI systems, which I know they're already doing. So we'll see how that goes. Few areas where we're seeing a lot of lift. So it's really good today at things like ideating, brainstorming, outlining. It helps people get over the cold start problem of, I don't know what to say right now, or I don't know what topic I should be writing about, or I don't know how to position our product for this industry or whatever. That's very helpful just to kind of use it as I hate to use the term co-pilot because everyone is, but this sidekick of just using them as a thought partner. That stuff is really helpful to people. Now, is that extremely valuable to pay for in like a product? I don't know. Personalization, working extremely, extremely well across different channels, making sure that you're deeply understanding your buyers, your customers. What are their unique pain points? What is the nuanced language that their industry uses? What is this person motivated by? And using all these insights that AI can aggregate and then personalizing stuff at each touch point. Repurposing content. This is the name of the game right now. How do teams do more with less? I think the macroeconomic environment made it such that people are no longer having large teams, especially not on the content side. And agencies are really expensive. Contractors are really expensive. So teams are trying to use AI to really help them get more out of that human-generated content that they're creating. Automating outbound prospecting. If you guys have looked into this space, there are about 15 dozen tools that are all AI SDRs. So they're trying to go and, again, probably do a lot of spam, but it's an interesting space. And it's something where I do think there will be some winners in that category. I don't think that the function goes away. I think that the human nature of it definitely goes away and gets wildly affected. And then the last thing we're seeing a lot of people using is to test a bunch of variations for ad copy and creative. That's definitely more on the consumer side, but even on the B2B side, people are doing this to just test what's working with their prospects. There was a recent study that I think this was a McKinsey study. No, sorry, BCG. BCG just reviewed about 3,000 marketers. People are already using it. I will say from my own experience of talking to about 500 CMOs, it's a lot of experimentation right now. It's a lot of people playing and trying to figure out where is going to be the fit, where is going to be the ROI. You can see here the breakdown of where people are playing. Definitely personalization really comes to the forefront. Idea generation, that to me is that thought partner experiment, content creation, social listening, analytics, that kind of stuff. This is where marketers are already applying AI. So where are the lowest hanging fruits? We talked about some of these. Personalization, we discussed. Content generation, one thing to note here is garbage in, garbage out. It is not good at generating long form content from scratch. Like if you were expecting this to go and create your big thought leadership pieces, you are not going to be happy with the outputs. If you're going to have a human generate the thought leadership piece, your big white paper, your big ebook, and then have an AI assistant help you turn that into blog posts, social posts, ad content, that works great, but don't expect it to actually build your long form content. Segment identification. This is super interesting for B2B companies. So can AI help you figure out who should you be targeting? Can we use data sitting within your own CRM, the internet, other places, other data sources, like intent data sources to figure out who should you be going after on what channels and when? Also helps with not only industry, but at the account level, it helps with the persona level. This is an area that I'm really watching closely, and I think is really going to move the needle for people. And last is analytics and insights. So there is a tremendous amount of unstructured data that is sitting in your own tools as well as kind of in the ether. AI is good at capturing all this data and then making sense of it. So if you ask it questions and you want it to analyze a bunch of stuff, it can give you very concrete answers very quickly. On the content generation side, most common things you're seeing people do, blogs, social ads. There are dozens of companies that help you do this. Everything from SEO content to refreshing existing content to creating that new blog post, that kind of thing. On the editing and clipping side, this is also an area that's really cool. So if you guys haven't played with Descript, let me pull this up really quickly.
Editing it. Most of the edits are going to sound good, like this.
Everyone was in such a good mood because of how nice it was outside. I had a blast. Everyone was in such a good mood. I had a blast.
But sometimes they're going to sound like this.
Oh my God, what do you call those things? Oh, an ice pop. I actually decided that I would treat myself and buy an ice pop.
And an edit like that, there's no audio engineering degree in the world that can fix that. It's just a total intonation mismatch. So sorry, you can't make that edit. Got to find another path or just re-record. That's where Regenerate comes in. I just click the gap between the words and click Regenerate, and new audio cells are grown that make it sound absolutely seamless.
I actually decided that I would treat myself and buy an ice pop. I hadn't had one of those since I was in like grade school.
You can also use Regenerate to improve a weird performance. Like here, this speaker seems to lose interest in himself midway through.
The towns get smaller, the prairie wilder, and you drive for a long time without seeing any cars.
Just select the range, Regenerate, and it sounds like this.
The towns get smaller, the prairie wilder, and you drive for a long time without seeing any cars.
Okay, one last demo. You can also use Regenerate to remove unexpected background noise.
Like a human face that people can be attracted to because, you know, we're human. Like a human face that people can be attracted to because, you know, we're humans and we really love to see other humans.
So that's Regenerate. So say you recorded.
So super cool tool. Big fan of Descript. If you're doing anything in the podcasting space whatsoever, or anything in the audio space, one I definitely recommend. Other tools that I've looked into for clipping long form video content, there's a bunch out there. I don't think any of them are fantastic, but the one I've been using is called Opus. I think it's opus.clip. Challenge with this one is if you give it like a 45-minute webinar as an example, it'll give you like 60 clips. I would say 5 of which are good. So you have to go through and really figure out which ones are the good ones. It does a pretty good job though on the captions. So I will say that part has been quite nice, but it's an accelerant for me. This would take me forever to go and find the right clips within my webinars, or if I wanted to go and hire somebody, be really expensive. On omni-channel personalization at scale, again, this is kind of what everyone seems to be thinking AI is really interesting and good at right now. I'm actually going to show you a quick demo of how we are doing this at TOFU. So there's kind of 2 main things we're focusing on, and personalization is one of them. So I'll show you what AI is capable of today. So the way we do this is we have a tool that allows you to go and select who you want to target, does research on the accounts, and then we'll generate hyper-personalized content. So we'll give this a name, and we're going to select who we're targeting. So I have all of my lists here, the people that I might want to go and target. So for today, let's see, I want to go and target, how about, we'll target our demo companies here. You also can layer in things like a persona if you wanted to target that on top. You can add instructions like context about where you met them or information you want to include. So maybe I'll say that we met these companies at a recent AIMG event, if I can spell. So now I'm giving it some context, and now I can go ahead and create my content. So we can do content across all of our channels. A campaign typically is going to include multiple channels. We can do things like a landing page, and then we can do maybe emails driving them there. So if I wanted to start with a page, we will give it a template that we want to personalize. We'll parse the page into all of its components, and then we'll allow the user to select which elements they want to be personalized. So both the images as well as the text, you can select whatever you want. So if I wanted to select an image, you could grab and change an image. And you could leave things like the headers, static, truly up to the user, whatever you want to personalize. And then when you're done, you could add a template to follow a tone or format if you wanted to. I'm choosing to just follow this as the landing page. And then we'll run a test on one of our accounts. So what we're doing now is we're taking all of the research that our AI tool has done on this company, Rapid SOS. We're analyzing the context of that landing page. And then we are filling in each of those sections that I selected with elements that we think are going to be most resonant with Rapid SOS. If I had layered in something like a head of marketing, we'd also focus on that persona. And then you can always iterate, you can always give feedback to the model and get one of them perfect. And then when you're happy with one, you could go and generate across an entire list. And that list could be, hundreds of accounts long. So here you can see now we have a variation for Rapid SOS. It's bringing in language that we know they use, so kind of pairing our core messaging with theirs. Each of these sections, we give you multiple variations. And then I could also say something like, maybe I want to add instructions here. And we'll tell it that I want it to include information about their industry. And now we can save and regenerate. So they're an emergency response company. So now we're incorporating that. So it'll follow any instructions that I want. And then once I'm happy, we can go ahead and generate across all of them. Now, while that's going, we can also do additional pieces of a campaign. So maybe we want to do, let's do an email. So I'll have TOFU make us a template. You can always bring a template as well. And again, I gave it the context that we met at a recent AIMG event. So it now knows that as well as all of the information about this account. So it'll generate us a template, and then we can use that template across all of our targets. One thing too, all of this will follow any kind of brand or style guide. So if you upload a brand or style guide that's saying, hey, we only use this language, we blah, 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 it'll do whatever you want. Now we'll say that let's look at our variations here. Let's say we like this variation. You just select the elements that you want to personalize. So I can grab maybe the body. And then you can always make this like if you use HubSpot or Marketo or Salesforce, you can make this a token. So it can pair TOFU tokens with your marketing automation system. And now for this one, let's do Marketo. And then we can generate across all of them. So here now we have one for Marketo. Again, I didn't do anything. I don't even know Marketo. I know they're in the payment space, but that's about it. So it really, for me, is a huge, huge lift. So I don't have to go and research these accounts or research the people. Now those are generating. You can see our pages are done. So let's take a look at a different one. So let's take a look at Hypergiant. So here is our variation for Hypergiant. You can see I gave it the feedback that for this top section, I want it to include information about the industry. So this is talking about space and defense. And I could now go and publish all of these. So the last step is publishing them. You can export them either as a code snippet that can go into any CMS like Webflow or WordPress, or you can always send this to places like HubSpot, Marketo, or Salesforce. Same thing in the emails. Now we have different email variations for all of our accounts. You could also add things for ads, PDFs like blog posts, white papers, ebooks, solution briefs, but that is kind of the personalization side. Now let's jump back over here So another thing is repurposing content. So I know some people had asked in the chat, and I'll show you a quick demo of that as well. So what we're finding people are doing for repurposing, it's actually really extensible in terms of what you can do. You can do anything from taking a long form piece like a white paper ebook guide and turning that into your blog post, your social post, potentially emails if it's a gated asset page. You also can take webinars and immediately transcribe it, turn that into blog posts, social, email follow-ups, additional content. One of my favorite things that I have been doing, which we've also gotten a lot of our customers on, is taking third-party content and repurposing it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say McKinsey puts out a great report that's really interesting for our space. I'm still going to give them full credit, but I'm now going to turn that into a blog post for me, taking the key takeaways, why it would be important to our audience, referencing McKinsey, but now I have a piece of content that is our own that is still relevant. Another thing is I could take trending topics on LinkedIn. So there's a few people that I think do great content. So someone had asked who I follow, a few people that I think do really great stuff. Kieran Flanagan, John Miller, Emily Kramer of Market One. There was a new person that I really, what's her name? Liza Adams. There's one more person. I'll think of her name. She's put out amazing content on AI and marketing on LinkedIn. What I do is I look for posts that get over 100 engagements. And if it got over 100 engagements, that means that topic is relevant to my audience. I'm going to go and take that post and I'm going to repurpose it into our own content. Again, still giving the author full credit, but now I know that this is actually going to add value to my audience. So those are a couple of ways people are repurposing content. Let me show you what that actually looks like. So I'll go back to TOFU here, and this time we're going to create a new campaign. So I do AMAs, and then with CMOs of companies like, in this case, Datadog, Gong, Calendly. So I'm going to go and take my AMA recording, which was a 45-minute webinar, and I'm going to repurpose that into a bunch of content. So we're going to add our AMA. So we'll go ahead and grab the Datadog one. This is just the video. Now I can give it instructions and I'm just going to create all of our content. So first I want to do a blog post. So I will go and select blog. I could do multiple. So if I wanted to create 2 blog posts out of it, I could do that. For now, I'll do 1. I could add our blog template of how we format our blog posts. And now we'll generate. I want to do social posts. So I want to do 2 LinkedIn posts. So this time I will select 2. If I wanted them to focus on specific things, I could give it, very specific instructions. So let's see what it does, and then we can give it additional instructions. And then I want to do an email that is a follow-up to the people who attended. So we'll give it the details and instructions that this is a follow-up to people who attended our recent AMA. And then maybe I want to give it a call to action too. We'll say the call to action should be schedule a demo of TOFU. I always tell people, and this is not just with TOFU, anytime there's a tool where there's instructions or custom prompts, or even in ChatGPT, treat it as if you were talking to a junior content person. So if you had somebody on your team and they gave you a piece of content and you're like, this doesn't really hit the mark, exactly how you would give them feedback, that's how you should talk to these text bots. That's how we get the best results. So now our blog post is done. So here you can see we have long form content, taking the key takeaways from the AMA. I didn't give it any information whatsoever. It pulled all this stuff out, talking about Alex's journey from being an 11-person startup to the CMO of a public company, talking about growing teams. Same as before, we always give 2 variations. So here, now we can bring out different things. If I want to go take a look at, let's look at our LinkedIn posts. So here now I have shorter form content. If I wanted to give it instructions to say, create bullets with the key takeaways. Now we can regenerate this one. What I also guide people is that sometimes people don't know what to say or what to tell it. Experiment. Just type in a bunch of stuff and see what happens. It doesn't matter. You can always go back. It's not like one of those things where if you make a mistake here, the cost of failure is high. It's very, very low. And so I just find the best way to, try the stuff is just experiment. And you're like, oh, that wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Great. Try again. Give it different instructions. So here, now I have bullets with the key takeaways. And then our other post will have, different elements. And then on their email, we now have an email following up with the people that attended. So you can see in the span of 60, 90 seconds, you can take one asset and create a tremendous amount of derivative assets. So really not only allowing teams to do more with less, but also just to give you superpowers, right? To let you be much more efficient and effective at your job. So I want to jump quickly into, let me see, are there any questions? Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. Oh yes, sorry, AMA has asked me anything.
Yeah, there are lots of questions coming in. So
okay, I'll answer these questions first, and then I'll dive into some of this other stuff. Yeah, okay, so first question on integrating with HubSpot. Yes, so integrates with HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce. And then the segments can pretty much be anything. So the segments can be based off of persona, industry, account, contact, stage of funnel, use case. And it can analyze lists, and it does account research on their behalf. So actually, let me really quickly just show this because it's a little hard to explain. So when you upload lists of targets, we immediately do research on them. So we pull in summaries, we pull in pain points that they would face related to our products and services, and then value propositions that we should use. And then same thing with, if I look at a different one, here it's going to pull in different information. So that's how it kind of analyzes the segments. Let's see. On the hosting landing pages, no, we do not host the landing pages. We point them to wherever you want them to go. So if you use Webflow, WordPress, Contentful, we'll post them there. If you want them to be landing pages in HubSpot or Marketo, you can push them directly in one click. They'll just create a new landing page on those platforms. And then last question here on the landing pages. Are they automatically personalized based off of cookies? Or I think part of this will also be reverse IP lookup. No, we're generating them based off of targets that you pull in. And there's a few reasons for this. We are finding that with cookie deprecation and then remote work, reverse IP lookup is very, very, very inaccurate. People keep getting pinged, like my engineers, when I am on our website, we think that I am somebody named Brian Knowlton. I'm not Brian Knowlton. He lives in Oakland apparently, but I'm not him. One of our prospects says that everyone thinks that she is their neighbor. So it's just not accurate. We did a test with one of those companies that tries to give you information on who is on your site. And it's pretty good. I would say it's decent at the account level, probably 80%. At the contact level, it was wrong 100% of the time. I looked up, I picked 4 sample people in a day that they told me was on my site. I looked them up on LinkedIn, and the company they said they work for is not who they work for. So if I was going to go and use that data, it would be pretty inaccurate. So what we're doing is doing it based off of who you want to target. So whether it's people that fill out a form, attend a webinar, you met at an event, you are pulling cold lists from Apollo or ZoomInfo, things like that. What about pixels? Meaning cookies. Cookies are being deprecated. I think, will it still work now? Probably. So that's more on the retargeting side. You can definitely do this for retargeting. So if somebody has come to your site and you do have them cookied, that would work. But in terms of reverse IP lookup, couldn't agree more. It is dead. Cool. Keep the questions coming. I like conversation and questions. I want to jump into some of the limitations here because there's a lot of stuff that it's not good at. So and just where to be cautious. The way that a large language model works is it is truly just trying to predict the next most likely word. And that is the reason why it tends to hallucinate, because it has no real context of everything else around it. It's just looking at word and then the next word. So there's that issue. Plus, there's obviously bias in training data. One thing that I'm personally very concerned about is if everyone is using AI to create content that is now training the AI, are we taking everything down a path of either poor quality, inaccurate information? What does that mean for the future of these tools? I don't know. But this is definitely a problem. It's also not good at following instructions 100% of the time. So if you give it something like, do not use the word, navigating, 9 out of 10 times, fine, won't use it. 1 out of 10 times it will. And that's because it's not deterministic. And the way that these work, it's just using this like next most likely word. One of the challenges in regulated industries is they have certain things they can and cannot say. If you are in healthcare, if you are in fintech, if you are in some of these other industries. So the solution that we're taking, and I think other companies are taking, is having a middleman between the outputs of an LLM and then the customer. So we actually go and create a rules engine to check against all of the things they can and cannot do. So it's kind of a safety net, but we'll see where this goes. This one's an interesting one. We discussed this briefly, but outputs truly are only as good as the inputs. I'm just seeing so many people feed crap into OpenAI, to GPT-4, ChatGPT, and expect that they're going to get good outputs, or creating these long form pieces of content, creating crap SEO content. It's just, again, it's not good. There are also a lot of things that Google is now trying to do in terms of trying to find what stuff is being created by AI, and it will dock your SEO. So if it is like, if you're creating 100 SEO posts all out of AI and are not editing it, it will affect your domain authority. And then last, this one is, I don't know how this is going to play out. People today do not understand what they should and should not be asking when it comes to data privacy and security when you are using a tool that touches a language model, or when you are using OpenAI or Gemini itself. I think this is going to be fascinating because of all of our customers, the security conversations are so wildly different. Some small companies that you would expect to just be okay with anything have incredibly stringent security policies around this. Some public companies are kind of like, it's fine. So I think everyone is trying to wrap their head around when and how they can let their teams use this. How sensitive information is very dependent on the companies, but some people don't want anything that is pulling from their core systems like a CRM to ever touch one of these models. So TBD on that. I think for companies that are building applications like TOFU, our stance is pretty much, we will comply with whatever people tell us to. We just don't know what to comply with yet.
And just on that one, how do you respond when someone says wants to something more convincing in terms of like, are you training the model based on our data? And how do you convince someone you're not, even if you're not?
Yeah, it's a tough question, right? And we provision all of the data in their own standalone siphoned off instance in AWS. So no customer data is really ever leaving there. Now, in our contract, we had to bake in for our protection. We do not have control over what customers input into TOFU. So if customers are inputting data that they either shouldn't be, don't have permission to own, don't have permission to use, we cannot control that. So that's one thing on the customer side. On our side, though, the easiest thing to do for us is, if a customer does not want us to be able to have unfettered access to their data in their CRM, we just don't connect the CRM. Our tool works just fine with CSV upload and download. So it's 2 extra clicks. It's really not a big deal, but now we truly are hands off, where we have no access to that. It is only what they're putting into our system, and they need to train their teams, and they need to force their teams to comply with their regulations. So I think that's been our approach. I will say European companies are by far more difficult to work with right now. They also, not only is it GDPR and all that, but they ask way more questions when it comes to this than American companies. Just a trend that I've been noticing. here, this is my take. I get asked the question a lot of like, what is AI going to replace? Where do we still need humans? Is this going to be AI marketing teams? We definitely still need humans, and we definitely will always still need humans. And I think what we need them for is what I call the creative and the strategic. So we need people to come up with core branding, messaging, positioning, strategy, thought leadership, those anchor pillar pieces of content, creating the events, creating the physical in-person touch points. All of that 100% needs to be done by humans. We also need humans to be strategic. We need them to think through what channel mix are we going to do? How are we going to measure success? How are we going to test? How are we going to iterate? When do we kill a channel or a test or a campaign? That kind of stuff is also really important. AI can assist in some of this stuff. It can help you with measurement. It can help you with identifying best practices, but we really need the humans to still be in the driver's seat for that. Eric, go ahead.
Hey, Elaine, this is a great presentation. And I think on a lot of these calls, there are people like interrupting, and I think there's silence probably because everyone's just like, bringing it in. So I have two questions for you. To the extent that you can share, in terms of the models that you use at TOFU, are they like open source, or are you using like a third party like OpenAI service? And then the second question related to that is, how you talked about putting in a disclaimer that for your customers that they have the right to use any data in the model that they upload. For all of us thinking about how to adopt generative AI either for clients or in our own organizations, how are you thinking about the issue of rights in models that you are using? So whether it's Llama or Mistral or OpenAI, there's this controversy, and stuff going through the legal system now about fair use on content that those models are trained for. So can you just talk about those two things and how you think about them, either from a TOFU perspective or your own experience?
So on the first one, we actually have built out an incredibly robust evaluation pipeline that involves humans. What we did was we said, look, there are all these things that are rating models, but they're not rating it on marketing use cases. So what we did was we took samples of content across content types, so different channels, long form, short form, emails, email body, email subject line, LinkedIn ad, Google ad, all that kind of stuff. And on a weekly basis, we have 30 criteria. So everything from, did it follow the instructions? And we have a scale. Did it, the level of personalization, was it good enough? The level of tone following, was it good enough? All these things. We have humans 3 in the Philippines who go and grade it. And it comes out with a score 0 to 100 on each of these elements. And then it gets an aggregate score. And we do that across all the open source models. So we only use the best ones that they're launching. We just found it was kind of useless for us to compare like GPT 3.5 versus 4 Turbo or 4.0. But we do Mistral, we do Llama, we do GPT 4 Turbo and 4.0, Anthropic Claude 3 Opus. We have found that certain models are better at certain things. And same thing when we think about imagery. So today we can swap out images based off of auto tagging and things like that. We don't generate images because it's not good enough, but we've tested that. For us, long form content, Claude 3 is the best. Claude 3 Opus. Like that is actually the best for things like taking my AMA and turning it into a blog post. For short form content, for those landing pages, we are finding that GPT-4 Turbo and now 4.0 is better. So for things like social posts, ad copy, landing pages, we route to OpenAI. So under the hood, we're actually routing to different models. In between, we have a series of prompt chains between when the user hits generate and when we ping the model. Mm-hmm. So that's on that front. And then on the, sorry, my brain just went off.
I was talking about the rights issue.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, it's one of those things where I don't think I have a strong take, and I also don't think that anybody knows where that's going to land or play out. I think that there's a lot of very concerning implications. And I think also sometimes people just have to make a decision of what they're comfortable with and what they're not. And I think it's going to be, my take people are going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, meaning there is going to be data that is leaked. There is going to be data that is probably going to get into training sets. Now, would I give it PII? No. If I was a healthcare company, would I give it anything that's under HIPAA? No. But the names of your customers, sure. Like that's not sensitive data. So I always talk in terms of cost of failure. If you are in certain things like legal, healthcare, finance, cost of failure, extremely high. If you're talking about writing blog posts, cost of failure is extremely low. So I think that you have to be on that spectrum and act appropriately. That's kind of my take.
And just to kind of nudge what you said, when you talk about customer data, when you're talking about a B2B, like my prospect list, I would agree that's generally not, protected data. But if you're talking about a company like in a regulated industry that's serving consumers, when you're talking about customer data, that is regulated. I think you know that, but just like for the
Absolutely
folks here, I want to just point out that those are two very different things.
Absolutely. And I think that's where people have to identify what in their data sets are sensitive and what is not. And again, act appropriately. Now, where does that get really tricky? How do you train your junior employee to know that and to follow that? And that's why I think there's some, especially on the public company side and specifically in regulated industries, the blanket policy is you do not have access to any of this. Nothing can touch OpenAI. Usually it's specifically against OpenAI. I think that's probably the safest policy for them right now until they get their ducks in a row and figure out how to make it such that from the top all the way to the bottom, people are following their policies and making sure that, to your point, like, they might have customer credit card data attached, right? Like that can't get leaked. So I don't know. Also, we focus specifically on B2B, which also makes things a little bit easier because, again, I think most of the data that we would be pulling or have access to from the CRM is going to be very low sensitivity.
Great. Thank you.
Great questions, though. Any other questions? I'd rather spend the last 5 minutes on that.
There's one that just came in from David Cutler. What's the first or easiest test pilot demo that informs and inspires your prospects the most?
I think for me, one of the cool things about the way that we've done TOFU is I demo 100% of the time on a customer's own stuff. So what I showed you right now was on TOFU because, there's so many people in the audience. But if you were, Marqeta or Drift or whatever, I will demo on your own stuff. And so being able to show in the span of 2 or 3 minutes, the ability to I always think too, if I was in this company and I was a marketer, who would be my target? So I pull in a dummy list of targets that would be appropriate to them. So if you target heads of data science at large, like public software companies, I'll create that list and then show them on that. And so I think that's kind of blows people's minds of we can do the research on the people, the research on the accounts, and then generate things using your own website, your own content, following your brand and style guides, all that. So on that front, the other one that I'm just seeing have tremendous power is what I'm calling webinar or event in a box. So on the repurposing content side, most companies are still investing in events and webinars, one or both. On the webinar side, you kind of got to see with my AMAs, which you can just call that a webinar, being able to, in the span of a couple minutes, take that recording, get my social content, my blog content, my email follow-ups. I could do email follow-ups to the non-attendees, so the registrants. On the event side, event invites before the event, any like one-pagers or different types of content you want to bring to the event, so event specific. Following up with the people who were attendee lists, badge scans. If you hosted like a small dinner or breakfast, making sure that you had that list and treating them separately. Did they have a conversation with sales? Have you never talked to them before? Are they a customer? Automatically ingesting that list and then doing, creating follow-up appropriately and creating nurture appropriately. If somebody from your company was speaking at an event, taking that recording, immediately turning it into content that can be used. That to me is also a use case that just feels extremely, extremely powerful to a lot of our customers. Oh, and then on the pricing, it's super simple. We're just keeping it flat. So it's $2,500 a month for unlimited access. So unlimited users, unlimited content, unlimited integrations and channels. We're making it easy for people right now.
And just since you're so full of recommendations here for those who might be even at an earlier stage of like stuff like this that's like a little bit more entry level if they're not quite at that need yet? Do you have any favorites?
Depends on the use case. So on the content repurposing side, I've heard Writer is quite good. That's actually the company that I have probably the most respect for in the space. They have done a good job at making sure that it's going to follow. The biggest piece with repurposing, where it's hard to just use something like a ChatGPT, is that it has to still inherit your brand tone, style, messaging, positioning, that kind of thing. If you went and just dumped something into ChatGPT, you're going to get out the same crap that is like navigating the daunting world of blah, blah, blah. Like it's just, it sounds straight out of OpenAI. And ChatGPT. It has to be better than that. And it's too hard to navigate your way around prompts. So Writer would be my recommendation on that. Yes, Kate had mentioned they built their own model called Palmyra. They also are just really good at inheriting brand style guides. And I do think that they have a very either like, I don't know if they have a free trial, but they definitely have a lower entry level price point on that. On the personalization side, we have yet to come across anybody that's doing omni-channel or like marketing focus. So if anyone else does, let me know. There's a lot of tools for SDR. I think probably 11x is very good from what I've heard. The other one, Instantly. Those would be my two recommendations. If you're looking for cold outbound, that's what they specialize in. So at scale, cold outbound, doing research on the prospect and then creating those email sequences, kind of like an outreach, but for AI.
Amazing. Well, this is tremendous, again, like wealth of knowledge inside your company and out. And so appreciate you sharing all this with us. Hope you get to pop by the community sometime more and share expertise. Thank you. And thank you everyone for another great engaged conversation. We've got Catherine Montgomery next week, AIMG live at New York Tech Week in 2 weeks. So a lot going on, swag, all kinds of things bubbling up here. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Safe travels to those in the States who are making the most of things. And just thank you all. This was great.
Thank you, everybody. It was great meeting you.